when it comes to Hong Kong equities. Does sentiment remain the same, or have things actually improved?
I think sentiment had remained quite moderate or deteriorated a little bit since we last talked. In the way that we've seen the power shortages, which was not there when we last talked. And there are pockets of outbreaks, COVID, around the southern province as well as the northeastern province in the country, which was not there when we last talked. So in terms of sentiment, it deteriorated a little bit since we last talked.
Do you think that's going to show up in earnings? Because we're getting the growth numbers, I believe, on Monday. And you look at some of the sequential forecasts there, quarter on quarter, some are at zero. And I guess to your point, that's something that markets did not really see up until a few weeks ago. So do you think earnings are going to get hit in some way?
Yes, definitely, especially when we are talking about power shortages. It's going to be negatively affecting most of the manufacturing companies where they have to pause or stop some of the manufacturing activities in the country. So third quarter numbers, it's likely going to see some downside after the announcement. Consensus earnings forecast is likely to be revised down. And fourth quarter is like a wait and see situation, whether or not the power shortage situation is going to be improved.
Would you describe, though, these valuations as already cheap enough, or at least have enough buffer to just in case those earnings do surprise to the downside?
Yes, I think it's quite priced in at the moment because we've heard a lot about whether or not China is investable. And we've heard a lot about the power shortages and the regulatory risks. And therefore, I think the market is pretty much aware of the risks that they're facing when we are talking about investment in China.
So that takes us into the internet platforms. How do you feel about that group of stocks right now?
There's still risks, I believe. The regulatory concern is still a major topic that's talked by most of the investors at the moment. But since a lot of the talk has been surrounding the regulatory risk, and therefore I think at least a part of it's already reflected in the price. Internet stocks, some of them had already priced in a lot of the regulatory risk, and some of them may have some more negatives to see. And therefore, investors should be cautious when they invest in that sector.
How about property?
Property, we've heard a lot of the negative news lately surrounding the real estate sector. And I think we can see some more negatives that's going to come out in the next quarter, the fourth quarter of 2021. And therefore, we are quite cautious on that sector also. Okay,
so avoid for now is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about this pickup in cyclicals, whether that's energy prices or energy producers. As an equity investor, how do you gain exposure to this spike in upstream prices? Producer prices yesterday, 26-year high.
I would look at downstream, actually, instead of the upstream companies. In terms of the upstream commodity companies, a lot of the spike in the energy prices are already priced in. But in terms of the downstream, especially when we're talking about consumer companies, some of the consumer companies are going to benefit from the situation in the way that there should be consolidation in the very highly fragmented sectors in the country. And therefore, a selected number of consumer companies are likely going to gain market share over the longer run. So I'd focus on the consumer companies and selectively collect some of these stocks for long-term investment.
All right, let's take a step back from the herd, if you will. People talk about property, people talk about internet, education has also been in focus. What are we not talking about that you think needs attention?
Consumption slowdown. We've heard a lot about the energy shortages. We've heard a lot about the regulatory issues concerning internet and e-commerce sectors. And the new topic actually would be the consumption slowdown that's being negatively affected by both the power shortages as well as the resurgence of the COVID outbreak in terms of the southern provinces and northeastern provinces. And if the COVID situation is going to prolong a little bit, then the consumption situation can be negatively affected. So that is an area to watch out on.